I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you sit down, let's pray real quickly. Lord, I love you. I love this great country that you allow us to live in. I love this state. And I pray, Lord, tonight that you will give us wisdom, you'll give us understanding as we hear some responses from these who are wanting to represent us in Topeka. Lord, I ask for your protection. I ask for your guidance. And God, as always, I pray your eye and your hand be upon our troops that are preserving our freedoms all around this world. Bless us tonight. Keep us. May we honor you, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I'm Rosemary and this is Tina. We are co-founders of the Granny Brigade, and we want to thank our candidates and all of you for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. And before we get started, make sure everybody has their phones on silent. Mine too. Now, I'm assuming all of you picked up a piece of paper or a card and a pen, because the way we do our questioning and answering, once the candidates are done with their opening, and Chad will ask some questions to the candidates. Chad will be our moderator. You will have time to write your questions on the card that was provided for you, and then we will send around a basket to pick them up. And also, we will also send around a basket asking for donations to help pay for the rental of our room, our security, and our streamer there, which is Mean Dean Production. It will not be live because we do not have internet here, but it will be on the Granny Brigade probably tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. And also, if you're not a Granny Brigade member, you can get it on Mean Dean Community Production on YouTube. And he should have that on tomorrow morning. Wow. And for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we meet every third Tuesday of the month. And we usually have the meetings here or at the Carver Center. And our next meeting will be June the 16th. And we will have our representatives and our senator from our state there to give you a recap of what they have done in the Capitol this past year. And then also we will have some candidate forms for our county commission and our state reps. And right now, I'm not sure where we will have that. It'll either be here or the Carver Center. So listen to the media and check the Granny Brigade, and we'll give you more information when that time comes. Also, on July the 21st, we always have the Granny Brigade birthday party in July, and we will be 6 years old this year, Tina. But this year, we're going to do little things different. We're going to open our birthday party up to the public, because we also are going to celebrate the United States 250th birthday that same night. And so it will be July the 21st, and it will be here at the Knights of Columbus, and the Granny Brigade members will provide the food. And we will have a veteran guest speaker. The VFW is providing our veterans to speak that night. And then any of the candidates that we invite and want to come, if they want to give you a little insight, they're more than welcome to do that, because we will be inviting all of our candidates. So if there are any Granny Brigade members out here, which I know there are quite a few, we will provide the meat if you want to bring a side dish that night. Only Granny Brigade members do. And the rest of you are all invited to have a fun evening and food. Anything else, Tina? Oh, and cake. We'll have cake. Cake. And when the meeting is over tonight, if you can and you're able, would you please pick up your chair and stack it back on the back wall, and 7 high is what they do. Anything else? Okay. Have a good evening, and thank you all for coming. I'll give you guys a little bit more room and I'll move this chair if you want. That way it gives you a little bit more room. Okay?
You're all skinny. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Boy, we are excited to have you guys with us tonight. We have they explained to you the schedule of everything. We are going to allow you to have a 3-minute opening remark. And I've already joked with somebody, keeping these guys to 3 minutes is going to be... but here's the even more fun one. After that, we're going to have some questions, and we're going to have 1 minute to respond to those questions. Good luck with that, timekeepers, as well. And then at the end, we will have a 3-minute closing, so you can bring up anything that needed to be covered. So we have you guys sitting kind of alphabetical order by last name. So we will start off with Jeff Collier, who is our gubernatorial candidate. We will follow with Joy Akins, then Ty Masterson, then Miss Charlotte O'Hara, and Stacy Rogers down on the end. Let's give them all a big round of applause before they get started.
I'll stand up for this part. My name is Jeff Collier. I grew up down the road in Hayes, 5 generations in Hayes. You know, the only date I ever had with a cheerleader, I started out in Hayes, America. I thought, wow, we're going to have this great date. We're going to drive to Salina to eat at the best restaurant that we'd never eaten at before. It was called McDonald's. I thought I'd really have a great time, but you know what? That's the only date I ever had with a cheerleader, and now you understand why. But growing up in Hayes, America, you come with a certain set of values. You grow up with a work ethic that is one of the best in America, and I did that, and it was quite an honor. It was quite an honor to be your governor. I served in the House, the Senate. I worked for President Reagan, I worked for President Bush, and eventually I worked for President Trump. It was a real honor to serve as governor. But one of the things that you want to know is we have a bunch of great candidates here, and all of them are going to be better than the Democrat, and I'm sure you will agree. But as governor, when I left office, here is the result. There was 1,448,096 Kansans working, more than ever before in the history of the state of Kansas. We had an $800 million surplus. Where I was the first governor to fully fund K-12 education and settle the Supreme Court rulings that have been fought by 50 years of 13 governors. And I fully funded it without raising taxes. The culture of life was on the rise. We were down on a number of abortions. We were really doing big things. And how did we accomplish that? We accomplished that by making Kansas government more efficient. We did that by creating CanCare. We were the first state to completely privatize our Medicaid program, which saves us about $1 billion today. We eliminated 5,500 unnecessary state employees, and nobody noticed. But if you think about it, 1,000 employees is about $125 million every single year recurring. Those are big savings by making our government more efficient. And so what we were trying to do is solve problems for Kansans. And we have a lot of challenges, and I look forward to chatting with you about those. But as we go forward, we are going to be talking about how do we make Kansas the true heart, the beating heart of America once again. In the 1860s and 70s, Kansas was the Silicon Valley. Abraham Lincoln said, if I had to move west, I'd go to Kansas. We did it again in the 1920s with the birth of aviation in Wichita. We have all of these pieces here, and we're in the exact center of the United States, and that's why we are going to have a number of opportunities. I look forward to chatting with you a little bit more about very specific plans about what we're going to do to make Kansas great again. Thank you all.
Well, good evening. I'm Joy Akins, and I'm running for governor to lead a Kansas comeback. Kansas should be the best place to live the American dream, and right now it's not. Because for decades, our career politicians have been stewarding the decline instead of leading us forward. You see the results all around you. We're spending more on education than we ever have, but our kids are falling further behind. Our taxes are more like California's than the states around us, the highest. And because of that, our people are leaving. You've seen the census numbers about Salina this week, because they can't find opportunity here. For the next governor, we need a leader, someone with a proven track record and a vision of how we get there. And it's my job in this campaign to convince you that's me. So a little bit about me. I've been married for over 30 years to a 6th-generation Kansan. I raised a son, a biological son, who just finished at the Air Force Academy and is now training to be a pilot for our country. For the last almost 18 years, I've been building the most successful data consulting firm in the state of Kansas, and with clients in 27 states, 160 cities. Executives all over the country of all size companies seek my advice when they're talking about strategy and vision and growth and culture. Because for them, they know that results matter. As a former Wichita School Board member, the only conservative, and former chair of the Wichita Chamber, the largest business advocacy group in the state, I've spent the last 15 years with a front row seat to what's happening in Topeka. And what I've seen is too often career politicians protecting their own power instead of serving you, the people. And I don't think it has to be that way. And I don't think you do either. So what's a Kansas comeback? Let's talk about 3 quick things. 1, education. A Kansas comeback means real choice for parents and a funding formula that finances good outcomes, not administrative bloat. It means tax and spending reform, so we're competitive. And a Kansas comeback means being an epicenter of entrepreneurship, not because we're taking money from your pockets and giving them to wealthy business owners in other states to move here, but because it makes sense to do business in Kansas. That's the kind of thinking and plans you'll get from me. I look forward tonight to talking with you more and earning your vote. Thank you.
My name is Ty Masterson. Thank you to the brigade for putting this on. Thank you all for coming out. My special thank yous to my wife, though, back here in the back, 32 years, who's become my driver. And it's not just my sounding board. And she's also the mother of our 6 children. And so we have 6 adult children, 8 grandchildren so far. Half of them on the field. I'm hoping for more. But that is why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I have a vested interest in making sure Kansas is a great place for the next generation and the generation after that to live and work and raise a family. And so that is the driving behind it. And I am the battle-tested, proven conservative leader with a track record. And I have the relationships to deliver at day one. You don't need any on-the-job training. And I've been the man in the arena, battling and fighting for you. People lose track of the fact that we've had liberal Democrat governors 16 of the last 24 years. And it's been a battle. They have been ruining the place from my perspective. And I've been the guy in the arena battling for you, like through COVID, making sure you didn't get forced jabs or lose your job and keep the church open. We protected our girls from boys in their sports. I mean, we're having conversations I never thought I'd have in that city. We're protecting our elections, right? Requiring ID and a paper trail. They want you to have no ID and vote by mail. We've been fighting against fraud. We've been fighting for your Second Amendment rights. In my time there, you went from no ability to have a concealed weapon on you to now you have a constitutional right to defend yourself. These are battles that have been going on, being a man in the arena. And we've battled to reduce taxes. Although when we have a Democrat governor in the office, they've never met one of your tax dollars they didn't want to spend 2 of. And as we have, even with our super majorities, they've not always been functional. But we have been able to take tax off Social Security, tax off, state level tax off property. We'll get to that because that's a crisis we're dealing with right now. So I've been the effective man in the arena with a track record. You don't have to gamble or take a chance. Pick your issue, go look at it. I have a record on it. Donald Trump is a battle-tested, proven leader. And what I'll put out to you as evidence is that look at Trump too. Same brilliant businessman, but he had the relationships to deliver day one. And he had the operational knowledge of the system to do it. We do not have time to wait. All we know is we have 2 more years with President Trump in office. I pray we hold the presidency after that, but we don't have that guarantee. We don't have two years for on-the-job training. And so I am that battle-tested, proven leader. And when I'm governor, we're going to stop the nonsense, and Kansas will experience its piece of American greatness.
Good evening. I'm Charlotte O'Hara. I am the only candidate that was raised on a farm and out of all the candidates, which is really an example of how Kansas has changed over the last few decades. I was raised on a 400-acre farm in Bourbon County. Fort Scott is our main town there, and I was raised about 20 miles northwest of there. I tell people I was apprenticed on the farm for 18 years, and I actually was planning on taking it over because I was the youngest of 4. I learned equal opportunity leaning into the flank of an old black Holstein cow on a one-legged stool. And I thought, well, my brothers, they left, and Dad needs help. And so I said, hey, Dad, I'm ready to take over the farm. And he said, no. So off to college I went, and I have a degree in education. Then I became a general contractor. In the late 80s, I started getting involved in politics because of the high property taxes in Olathe. Nothing much changes. 30 years, we're still fighting high property taxes. And this is an issue that is to the point of taxing us out of our homes. It is so out of control. So I served in the Kansas House in 2011 and 2012. I was on the Johnson County Commission 2021 to 2025. I was the maskless wonder in Johnson County. I did not wear a mask. I refused the shot. I voted no on closing the schools and businesses. I stood firm, and I will tell you, there was a lot of pressure, but who cares? If you're getting pressure, it means that you're doing the right thing. So I have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, 2 dogs, which are out in the car, and 1 horse. I have the business background, I have the political background. I'm not afraid to stand up to the big boys and say no. And our tax incentives, they are absolutely out of control. We gave the chiefs $4 billion, and add another $2 billion for interest. And of course, the big shots in Topeka are going, well, this isn't going to cost you a thing. Oh, really? For every tax incentive, that is a reassessment of the tax burden on you. And I'll give you an example. In Overland Park, our governor gave Fiserv $154 million as a tax incentive in the Sprint Center, which we'd already incentivized. They've lost 70% of their value in the last 12 months. That's how we pick and choose winners and losers in the state of Kansas. I'll look forward to answering questions, and this is great. And the number one thing, I brought a bunch of signs for the direct election of our state Supreme Court justices.
Good evening, I'm Stacy Rogers. And a lot of you, some of you might have met me before, but I'm not in my normal uniform of jeans and my t-shirt running around the counties and the cities visiting with people. And so when I started my campaign, what I did was I started talking to people, and I asked them, what do we need to fix in this state? And what I heard over and over was, no one is listening to us. Our voice is not heard, it does not matter. We don't like the people that we're voting for, but there's never a different option. Nobody comes out to see us in Western Kansas. Nobody comes out to see us in Southeast Kansas. Nobody will come and visit us. And I said, you know what? I care. I'll come see you. I'll listen. And we'll get some work done together. Now, over the past almost 2 years now, I've been traveling this state. And between January and July, I'm working on all 105 counties, going town to town. So by the time I get done in July, I will have been in almost every single town in this state. And I talk with people directly where they are. I don't demand people to come to me. And I go where they are in their businesses, and they're drinking coffee in the morning, and we have conversations about what are the pain points in their life. And it's really disheartening, some of the things that you hear across the state. We have a lot of problems and a lot of things that we need to overcome, and we have not been served well for a long time. And we'll talk about some of those things, I'm sure, as the night goes on. But I do want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm not currently in politics, and I'm very proud of that. I'm a business owner. I'm a multi-generational Kansan, and I have worked my way up to work my businesses, own businesses. I've owned 6. I did step back from quite a few to make this run, but 6 businesses, running them in the state of Kansas, supporting local families and giving people jobs, and that is really, really important to me. I have 3 boys, and 1 is married. My youngest got married last year, and they live here. All of my kids live here, and my oldest just got engaged 2 weeks ago. So we're also planning a wedding now. And thankfully they're going to get married next April. So, when I've been traveling, I've been having these conversations about education, about property tax, about something I never thought we'd have to start talking about in great detail are the data centers and the absolute overtaking of our state by these projects. But here we are, we're having to have these conversations, and I've gotten pulled into more of those conversations than I can even count anymore. They're just absolutely overwhelming. And so there's a lot of things that we need to address. Oh, that's timed. Thank you, we'll talk more.
Can everybody hear me if I don't pick up a microphone? I have a big mouth, so you hear me in the back? Good, good. We're going to be asking questions here in just a moment. With that in mind, the protocol here for the Granny Brigade meetings is you write down your questions on one of those 3x5 cards that you received when you came in, and the ladies have baskets that they're going to pass around in just a moment. And as that basket goes by, you can put that card in there. You do not have to add your name to the question. If you would like, feel free. I very rarely read names out with those, but if it comes up and you have another question in the midst of their answers, just raise your hand and the ladies will come back by and they will take your questions from there. That helps the process move along so that we can get as many questions answered as possible while we have these candidates here with us. So I'm going to start off with a few questions that hopefully is going to get some conversation going. And some of the questions that I have been received from citizens in Saline County. So I want to start that off with some of these. And as they're answering, the ladies are coming by with baskets, so you put your questions in there as well. Starting off, and we're going to start on this end, Stacy, if you don't mind. We started here last time, so we'll kind of go back and forth. The first question comes with something that's already been brought up, and it's been brought up in a lot of television ads as well. Career politicians. There are some, and I got a couple of answers that said there's a benefit because there's experience with that. The other says we need fresh faces. Give me your opinion of career politicians and the pros and cons of experience versus fresh faces.
In 1 minute, okay.
1 minute.
Okay, well, if you look at the history of what has occurred in the last 20, 30, 40 years, career politicians have taken us down the wrong path. And when we look at what is occurring in this state right now, I think a lot of times we said in the past, oh, it's politics, oh, we know, they're doing some things over here, but we're still getting benefit over here. Well, that is not the case anymore. We are not seeing those benefits. There is more harm being done to the people of this state than good. And so we do need to have some fresh faces. We need to have somebody that wants to serve the people first. I'll just stop there.
Oh, okay. Going down.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I have been in the political process. I have been ran over, I've been backed over, I've been ran over again, but I have stood strong for what I believe. And that is that Kansas no longer can be the high tax point on the prairie. I think to have some experience in the political arena, just so that you know where the sharks are hiding out. It's really amazing how horribly managed our state has been and continues to be. And we do have a supermajority and as of Republicans in the House and Senate. And we were promised, oh, give us a supermajority and we will take care of business. Well, unfortunately, that has not happened. And I have gone toe to toe with some big dogs. And, you know, like I said, I've been run over, backed over, and run over again, but I'm still here and I'm still working for you.
So that needs balance, right? And I brought it up in the opening remarks about President Trump. I think President Trump's that balance, right? He was the outsider at first, and then you see his term two, how effective he was on the day in when he had his relationships and operational knowledge, and how effective he was, because it does matter. Because people say big things on the campaign trail, fully on the outside, and they can tell you what they hope to do, what they want to do, what they plan to do, but once you're in you have to have the relationships to deliver. Now have those relationships to deliver, and that's where the record comes from. You don't have to guess. You can go look and see where everybody's been on the issues. And if you're going pure outside looking in, you have to have the balance to be effective day one, and we don't have the time to gamble.
What a great question. So in my life, I work with this principle: faithful in little, faithful in much. So what are the results? I saw a lot of you shaking your heads when I say Kansas is not the place to live the American dream right now. You all know what the results are. That's what's gotten us. So let me tell you, by faithful investment. When I was on the Wichita School Board, only conservative, you can imagine what that was like. I never caved. I stood for student outcomes, parents' voices to be heard, and for teachers to feel safe in their classrooms. Those are important things. 2, during COVID, when the governor would not open the state up, I used data to go up and testify to the Judicial Committee because I have relationships there to get in and speak and also expose it to the press, and an hour and a half later, she opened the state up. I have a proven track record. I've been faithful in everything I've been, and I'm a good leader. Thank you.
I went to TMP. Many of you know us, and we played football against you, all of that. One of the things that happened at TMP is they beat it into you, we're here to serve, you're here to make a difference in the world. And I looked at it and said, there's a physical side to us, and then there's that bigger world. And I decided to be a surgeon. I've seen a couple of my patients here. And also that I wanted to serve, make a difference. And so I very deliberately went in and out and did 2 things on this. I had the great honor of working for President Reagan. Left medicine, worked for him in his State Department and in his White House, and I knew what principles were. I had to work for President Bush. I went back to medicine. I've been practicing medicine since that time. I was also had the great honor of being in the House part-time, being in the Senate, being the longest serving lieutenant governor in Kansas history, and being governor. And while I was doing that, I was on call for more than 200 days a year. And I would see Kansas at their worst. And that's what this is about, is to make this a great place.
Thank you. And Mr. Collier, if you hold on to that microphone, we'll go right back down the line. And I appreciate you guys not standing up. I know it's 1 minute, so that would take more of your time away. The next question would be about the star bonds. I know it's a controversial thing among some people, even here locally. Just give us your opinion on star bonds in general, and then the idea of the Chiefs coming into Kansas, where you stand on that issue.
Yeah. The main thing that we need to do in Kansas is we rely on things that are not incentives. Great workforce, great education, families that are here, and that you can have a business here. I have a small business. I know how important it is. Sometimes the state has done things like star bonds and others. Sometimes they've been successful, and sometimes they haven't. And what we see is that some of these bigger ones where they go over and over, that's where you see problems. The role of governor is to make sure that we don't have boondoggles. And we're gonna have to deal with all of the star bonds over the next few years. And what I'm gonna promise you is that we will not bail out people with a star bond. I like the Chiefs coming to Kansas. I haven't seen all of the data from that. I was a little surprised at how big the district was there, but they've signed the deal and they're working it through. I'm going to make sure that we're successful when we deal with it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. It's a great one, and I think you'll see differences among us on this panel. So I've been a business owner for almost 18 years. My husband owns his father's business, second generation, 42-year-old business. I have never thought, nor has he, that it is our job as business owners to take money from you to make our books work. That's my job. It's my job to make my business work, not yours. So I was one of the few people that came out early against the Chiefs deal. Look, I love the Chiefs are coming. I'm a huge football fan. I love the Chiefs. I'm glad they're going to be here. But I don't think we have to give away the farm to get them here. And that's what this deal appears to do. And all of the data behind it, we don't know what it is, and we won't know till 2030 something. But here's what it does. It caps a bunch of money that we will not be able to use to reduce your taxes for the next generation, for the entire state, not just that area of the state. So you're right to be concerned about it, and I am as well. Thank you.
So this is probably going to be a distinction because of the Star Bonds project, you don't have to raise a tax. You use what the district is around, and on growth, you're not diverting the tax as a set base. It's thousands of jobs. It's 4,000 permanent jobs, 20,000 construction jobs. We need growth in this state. You want to have lower taxes, we need growth. It's going to throw off $3 billion in income tax just off the NFL alone. There's a lot of numbers being thrown out with false. There's no billions of dollars going to some billionaire team owner. It's going to the infrastructure, just like billions go to build roads. There's going to be 60% of the bond goes to build the stadium, and the others, and there's more than that in investment from the team in restaurants and hotels and bars. The best example is the Speedway. That area of ground, the same model, was throwing off a few $100s as ag ground. Now it throws off $30 billion in property tax and $1 billion of sales tax, of taxable sales. And so we need growth. All I'm just saying, listen to both sides of the story in the end, because there's a lot of misinformation and you're just about to hear it.
Well, there was a lot of no information because we didn't get to see what the contract said, and we don't get to see that until 2030. It was 2029, but they pushed that to 2030 this last legislative session. Folks, it doesn't work. We've been trying this tax incentive false narrative for 40 years. We passed this in a constitutional amendment in 1986, and the premise was you give these tax incentives, you're going to broaden the tax base, and then you're going to lower taxes for everyone. Anybody see their taxes lowered? 40 years. We've been doing this for 40 years. Absolutely. I fought tooth and nail. I wrote column after column after column about all of the problems and issues, and now we have a sports authority that's going to cost us money. And it's just unbelievable how our Republican majority just keeps handing out welfare to billionaires. No, absolutely. We need to sunset Star Bonds. We need to sunset tax increment finance districts. We need to sunset industrial revenue bonds. We need to sunset it all and go back to the free market.
So Star Bonds are the most overused economic tool that we have, and we have 17 active right now with 2 more on the way. And there was a study done back, well, first of all, estimated 65 to 75% of our entire state population now lives within 5 miles of a Star Bond. That means you are most likely paying into a Star Bond area, okay? And that money's not serving you at that point. There was a study done over years 18 and 19, and they looked at the 14 that were active at that point. The Commerce Department was not even tracking the actual out-of-state sales tax revenue created. They were forced to do that in 22. So we've had all these for so long, we have no data on it, but they independently looked at it and found out that only 3 of those 14 were performing at that time. One of those was Legends, and it would still take us decades to recoup the sales tax revenue lost from those 3.
Thank you. And you can hold on that microphone, so stay right there. This question, I'm going to start taking questions from the audience because we've had so many questions come in, which I love. I think that's a great thing. This one says, what is your view of legalized recreational pot? And I'll just add, it's signed Mary Jane.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay, legalized recreational.
Recreational.
Okay, no. I'm not for that, but one of the issues that we are facing is there has been zero discussion about the protections that we need to put in place for infrastructure in the event of we are now sitting in a time of when we have at a minimum medical marijuana legalized versus if. And we need to pay attention to that. We're one president away, one governor away from that occurring. And we have not, the refusal of having the conversation at all about the parameters and the protections for our people and for law enforcement in that conversation is what needs to occur. We cannot have a free-for-all in this state when that does get legalized at some point. We cannot have a free-for-all. We do not want to look like these other states that have a huge mess on their hand. So we need to put those protections in place. That is the only conversation I'm willing to have right now about that.
No.
Mine's not going to be much on Mary Jane, wherever you are out there. This is probably not going to be the answer you want. No, I mean, look at the states that have expanded marijuana. It has not been the panacea they want. It's not been the tax revenue they want. It has caused as many problems as it has benefits. I'm not sure what the benefits are. I mean, look what Oklahoma did. It's just been a cluster, and they only have supposedly medical, right? I mean, which is effectively recreational. So there are all kinds of consequences to that, and I'm not supportive.
Well, this is probably one we're mostly going to agree on, because Mary Jane, you're disappointed in me as well, too. No, it's a terrible idea, and just look at the data. Again, what's the data say? For every $1 of tax revenue gained for medical or for recreational marijuana, it costs $4 in services because of all the havoc it creates in those communities. We don't need that. We don't need to add havoc. We have enough havoc. Our families have enough to fight against to be a strong family. And we need strong families so we can have a strong Kansas. Thanks.
I have to deal with this every day as a doctor. The last 4th of July, I had 13 people come into various emergency rooms in Kansas City blowing off their entire hand. Every single one of them was positive for marijuana. Less than half of them had alcohol on board. Now, that's a terrible thing for them because it ruins their life for 50 or 60 years. For 50 or 60 years, they're getting housing, Medicaid, food stamps, all of those things. And we've turned, because of a marijuana problem, each one of these people, we will literally spend millions of dollars on them. We don't talk about it much, but that's the real world. You know, the other part is the medical marijuana. My brother died a horrible cancer death, and we tried it because he was so nauseated there. It didn't work in his place. I think the president has finally opened it up so that you could actually have real research, real scientific research. Let's let the research work.
Thank you. This one doesn't have a fancy signature at the end, so I'll start with you, Mr. Collier. What will you personally do as governor to ensure Kansas taxpayers are no longer treated like an unlimited funding source for governmental waste and inflated administrative salaries?
Absolutely. I love this question. What we need to do is we need to make government smaller. The size of government has increased almost 60% since I've left government. Is your life 60% better? It's not. They've added thousands of employees. What we need to do is we need to make sure that instead of being the 3rd highest number of public employees per capita, we'd be down towards the middle at least, if not the bottom. Every one of those 1,000 employees is $125 million recurring. That's why we're in a budget hole of $600 or $700 million this current year, and we're running into a big crisis. So let's turn those people into taxpayers. Let's change the technology. I was the one who got us the first app in the United States where on your phone you could actually start paying for your car tax. You should be able to do all of your government work on your phone, in your pajamas at 3 a.m. And that's going to make us more efficient. And let's make sure that they're going to respond to you. Let's make government smaller and more effective.
Thank you.
What a great audience, great question. So, I was with a bunch of startup entrepreneurs in Wichita a couple years ago, and I said, if the government were here today, what do you wish they knew? And every single one of those groups came back with this answer. We wish the government knew we were the good guys. Don't you wish the government knew you were the good guys, the taxpayers, that they should try and help you, not put up barriers in your way? The first thing you have to do is change the mindset of the executive branch and all the employees that work there. And then secondly, we need to look at how we get our spending under control. I put out a property tax reform plan in January. You can find it on our website at kansascomeback.com. But a big part of that plan is just to make the appraisal system accountable to you, because right now that system is crazy. You don't know how they got that number, and it takes weeks and hours to figure it out, to go fight it. And that's an example of why the tax system is wrong and doesn't work for you, and they've forgotten that you're the good guys.
So you have to clean house inside the executive branch. The Democrats have been blowing that up since they took it over, number one. Number two, spending drives tax rates. And what I think you have to do, my experience now tells me you have to choke the input. You just have to let people keep their money, because that's what makes the government bureaucrats make the tough decisions between this and that, not this and that, and I'm going to tax you for it. And those, because I stacked an appropriations committee, started a committee called COES, Committee on Government Efficiency. We're going after waste, fraud, and abuse, and and the appropriations stacked it with conservatives, known conservatives, and not every single one of them added something to the budget because it was something important to them. So in order to really trim government, you have to choke the input and make the bureaucrats make the tough decision.
Well, it doesn't help much when there's so many holes in the boats from all of the tax incentives that's been handed out like candy over the past 40 years. In Johnson County in 2024, we diverted $108 million just through industrial revenue bonds and tax increment finance districts. $108 million. Number one, close the State Department of Education. They're totally worthless. That's $300 million of paper shufflers. I don't want to pay for that. We need to stop taking federal funds. We need to put the responsibility back of curriculum on the local school districts so that when they're not performing, everybody knows where to go and chew on to get accountability for our children. We have left our children behind. It's just ridiculous. I homeschool. This is not magic in teaching kids. They are like sponges, but we need to educate them and not indoctrinate them. Medicaid and SNAP, those are two favorite fraud schemes. So anyway, thank you. Oops.
So the very first thing that needs to happen is a thorough audit of every single department in the state for waste and fraud. And there are some recent things that have been talked about with the unemployment issue that happened in COVID. And you know, they made a point to say, but we're not talking about fraud. And I said, oh, well, there's a lot of people that have come to me and told me about how as businesses they were inundated with false unemployment claims, several a day that they were receiving for people who had never worked for them at all, and people who had had unemployment taken out in their names, and they're still trying to clear their names to this day. So yes, there is a lot of things that we need to be looking at, and that will clear up a whole bunch of the issues right there. So every department, every direction you point, and it's broken right now, and everything will need to be looked at. Give it to me again.
The Department of Education was just brought up, and this question builds upon that. A recent study showed that 83% of Kansas graduates are unprepared to move forward into college education. As governor, what will you do to correct the course of education in our schools back to academia?
We'll start with how we fund the schools. We need to fund based on results and progress based, not seats, not people in seats. And more money needs to actually reach our teachers and our students. We are very administrative heavy in the state. And there are, as I've traveled, I've talked with a lot of schools and a lot of different areas with that. And my background, by the way, is I'm a public, private, and homeschool parent. I've seen every way you can educate in the state, and I believe very strongly in educating the child the way they need to be educated. But when I'm talking to these different areas of the state, and we have a 600-person, district, and a superintendent over that, and then a superintendent over here, and a superintendent over here, we could consolidate superintendents over multiple districts, not closing schools, not closing districts, but consolidate those superintendents and save the state millions upon millions that could be put back towards the teachers. And no teacher should be funding their classroom. That's one thing. And put it back into our education.
This is pathetic. 83% of our students aren't prepared for college. And that means that's a lot of expense at the college level for remedial classes. Again, close the State Department of Education, stop taking federal funds. That's why we have Common Core. Every student succeeds. Social emotional learning. Federalization of our schools has been an utter and absolute failure. Stop it. Just stop it. And get the local control. Get it back to the local school districts. They can determine what kind of curriculum they want. Then we're going to have competition. Oh my gosh, look what Abilene's doing. Their community is excited about their schools. We're getting people coming in. This is fantastic. But no, we have to wallow in the swamp of failure. It's unbelievable. What are we doing? Just absolutely. There are so many things. And like I said, I was a homeschooler. My gosh, what an absolute wonderful opportunity that was.
Thank you.
So the first thing we do, we need our parents to have choices. We have kids trapped in places, right? They're trapped by a zip code, and only choice they have is a failing building. Parents have to have the opportunity to give their kids access to world-class education, no matter where they're. And that's talking about for low-income people, right? Because rich people have choices. So you have to create the competition in education, but you also have to change the system. We will always have to fund public education. It's how most kids in this country, in this state, will be educated. But we have some big challenges in the system. We have some perverse incentive for teachers to become administrators at the end of their career. It's not a fault of them. It's a financial decision that's good for them. But the highest paid person in the building should be the teacher. So that's what people want to be. And then we've taken phones out of the classrooms. We just passed that this year. We're hoping that'll make a big step to help with the education. And I'm all for accountability for literacy in the 3rd to 4th grade. That's what Mississippi did. They made a hard stop at 3rd and put a focus on reading, because if a kid doesn't learn to read, he can't read to learn. That's coming from a dyslexic. So you have to have a focus on literacy and the fundamentals.
Well, it's really great to hear them all talk about my education plan. I'm the only candidate that's released an education plan. You can find a copy of it in the back later or on our website. 3 quick things: school choice. I became a school choice proponent the day that my bonus son's mom was told that some kids are just doomed to fail. And I realized the next day she had to put her kid on a bus and send him back to a school that thought he was doomed to fail. He needed an option. Number 2, our finance formula, the one that was signed by our last Republican governor, that's what you're paying for right now, and it incentivizes administrative bloat. And our teachers have barely kept up with inflation. Barely kept up with inflation. All this money has gone to administrators. We need to invest in our teachers. They're on the front lines. They need to make good money when they're doing well. Arkansas just got rated #1 in education, in teachers, to be a teacher, because they give real money to teachers when they get good outcomes in the classroom. There's more about how we need to work civics into the classroom and go back to teaching people what it means to be a citizen. So please check out our plan.
We got to get the woke out of our schools. We need to make sure that our kids get a proper education. So what do we need to do? First, we need to make sure that we have 3rd grade reading and math, and that they can also do the technology on that. And we're going to test those kids. We're going to do the Mississippi plan. Mississippi was 48th in the United States in reading. They're now in the top 5 in the space of about 8 years. And they did it by rewarding teachers, by not socially promoting kids who can't read to the next grade. We need to work on up the line as well. I was the governor who insisted, and I put it in, that every senior gets an ACT score. And you know what's happened to them? Every single year, they have gone down. The money that we put into K-12 education, what they did is they took out the outcomes and they increased the administrators. Our number of administrators is up 57%. And so we're going to change all of that and focus on our kids.
Thank you. And hold on to that microphone, because I have
Go
like
back this way.
6 questions about education. So we're going to stay on this topic
Okay.
right now, and I'm trying to collaborate some of these. School choice has been mentioned, and choices for opportunity. Where do you stand on school choice, and can you give specifics on how you would enact that in Kansas?
So Kansas, in terms of school choice, is at the very bottom in the United States. We have very limited, if any at all. Okay, and when you look at that, when you look at our results, they're good in some places and not so good in others. We've got some good places here in Salina or in Atwood or some other places, but parents need to choose. But when the school fails you, you need to have an option because your kid can't wait. And so we have to have real school choice. And that's what we're going to do, is make sure we have school choice, but we're going to make sure that we focus on those outcomes for our kids. Choice is something that is important, and supporting our local schools is important. And when you empower teachers rather than administrators, when you reward them for that, when you give parents the choices so that their kid can get the best education for that kid, I think that's the right approach. Thank you.
Well, we've already been talking with national partners like edchoice.org about how they've implemented school choice in rural states around the country and what their data and outcomes are, because whatever we do in Kansas has to have good outcomes for our kids, better outcomes in all schools. And so we're working on the specifics of that plan right now and what that will look like based on the data and how it applies to Kansas. But I want to make sure you know that one of the things that people will say about school choice is that it's going to kill your special services kids. And what I want to say to you is I'm already talking to entrepreneurs and innovators in Kansas who are experts in things like autism and dyslexia and other areas that our state does not serve well in many public schools. And these organizations are ready to spin up schools if they knew that parents could afford them. Schools that could actually really help their children that are run by experts in those fields would be great for us. We only recognize dyslexia because of Janine Phillips in Wichita, Kansas, and the work she's done for decades to fight the education establishment.
So obviously there's not a one easy solution because every family, every kid's a little different. Those that have resources, it's going to have to some combination of tax credit for those that have a tax liability. We did, by the way, just override a veto from our governor to implement and opt into to President Trump's tax credit on education from the working family tax credit, which is a step. But for those that are completely impoverished and trapped, we're going to have some type of educational savings account that will also allow those kids, if they are only in a failing building, there has to be some way for us to address that, because it's just would be shameful for us to leave them in that position. Thank you.
This is near and dear to my heart because my youngest daughter was 10 years old when she came to my home, and her brother also came with her. So she was 10, he was 12. They were from the Grandview School District, which has a terrible reputation, but now all the schools have a terrible reputation. It's unfortunate. But they, I homeschooled them, and in 6 months I had them caught up to grade level. 6 months. Okay, here's the problem with school choice with using state money. That state money is going to bring state control to our private schools. I give you an example of Catholic schools. They take free and reduced Title X money. They have to have Common Core. They have to have every student succeeds. They have all of this, and I have been toe to toe talking to the superintendent. Oh, and they go, oh, we can make it all Catholic. I said, no, you can't. Those numbers are still in the box, which totally confuses kids. This is ridiculous. So just remember, with the money comes strings.
So as I mentioned before, I've been a homeschool, public school, and private school parent, and I have 2 children with special learning challenges. I do have a son with autism, and I have a son with profound dyslexia and profound dysgraphia. And dysgraphia is the writing piece of things. And so as we went through their schooling, again, I'm a huge advocate for teaching the child the way they need to be taught. I watched fantastic outcomes with my own kids. I have actually seen schools formed, and in our Wichita area, there's a private school that was made specifically modeled after my own son. And I was able to go back, I just found out about it last year, and I was able to go back and tell him that all of the pain and struggle that he went through, there is now a school out there that is helping kids just like him. He will help hundreds of kids because of that. And that is what we need to see more of. So when we're talking about the special education area, there are places for them.
Hold that microphone, you can finish.
I know.
Yeah. Well, after this question, you can finish. How's that? Again, this builds upon that. This question is about school funding. I guess the first part of this question would be, are our K-12 schools fully funded? Secondly, what is your feeling on funding for private and public schools? I'm assuming they're talking about school choice with vouchers and different things like that.
Right. Yeah, I think that school choice with, and I think there's been some discussion about vouchers versus tax credits, and I think tax credits make a lot of sense. But read the first part of that question again. I'm sorry, one more time.
The first part was
funding.
Funding.
Okay. It's one of the reasons that I got into the discussion about funding a different way. When we talk about special education and how a lot of times that money doesn't reach them, it's not funded the correct way. Well, when we move to a results and progress-based funding, you can still measure how well a student is doing and be able to see that progress. One of the reasons I took my son with autism out of school is that they kept pushing him forward. And by the time I took him out in 3rd grade, there were huge gaps in his learning from just simply kindergarten to through 2nd grade. And I had to go back and teach him again. So when we have progress, we'll get to it later.
Is there enough money? Yes. There is so much money, but it's slushing around in the system and it's not getting to where it needs to be. Again, we need to stop taking the federal funds, close the State Department of Education, and put the decisions back at the local level. I went to high school in Uniontown, which is about 13 miles west of Fort Scott. And we had a principal at the high school, and the graduating classes were like 35. Principal at the high school, principal at the grade school, and then out west of the high school in the head shed, we had a superintendent. Now, is that just ridiculous for that small of a district? And that is repeated over and over and over across the state of Kansas. We have to get the administration under control. It's just, it is absolutely, and this has been decades ago that was happening, and it's multiplied since then.
So K-12 is fully funded in Kansas, and even the courts agree with that. We've had all these lawsuits. As a matter of fact, I took the Speaker of the House down to meet with the lead attorney for the last Gannon suit, because we have in our statute a requirement that we put CPI increases in every year regardless of outcomes. And that was $160 million just this year alone. It's been like $1 billion over the last 6 years. I've been trying to remove it with a Democrat governor. It's not going to happen. And I literally said to him, this is killing the Kansas budget. We have to get it out. I go, I said, we are not getting outcomes from this. And this is not a joke. He said to me, I don't care about the outcomes. That's what he said. I care about the money that comes in. And I said, you got to be punking me. There's the only reason you spend a tax dollar is for an outcome. An educated kid, a good road, you pick it. That's what we spend it for. But that is what we are battling against. So yes, it is fully funded, but but it is not spent in the way it should to get the money down to the child.
This is a great question. Kansas spends the 15th most of any state in education. Did you know that? And meanwhile, our kids have gone from number 7th in reading, number 7, to 40th. 75% of our 8th graders cannot read. I think the question about whether we're funded or not is clear. We've spent more and more money. We aren't getting better results. So it's pretty clear. You all know it. You're all shaking your heads. So yes, we're more than fully funded. We fund more than most people, and we are getting terrible results for it. And the second question about private versus using public dollars for private schools, I would just say to everyone in here that's on Medicare or Medicaid, or VA, you already use your public benefits in a private business. We've done it for decades. And we would never ask grandma not to go to the best surgeon for her hip when she breaks it. We would want her to go to the best surgeon. Why would we not want that for our children? We already do this. It's already a practice. This is not new ground, and lots of other states are already doing it successfully.
We're spending between $18,000 and $19,000 for every student. Think about that. In a classroom, you've got 20 kids, there's $400,000. where does it go? It's not going to the classroom. It's not going to the teachers. Our teachers are about the middle in the United States, and we don't reward the good ones. What we need to do is make sure that we change the funding formula, which is how we determine where the dollars go. We need to keep it out of the bureaucracy and all of the things that they run all of this money through. You know, it's kind of crazy when we have a superintendent that makes $400,000 plus. So what do? We need to establish outcomes and rewards. And if the kid is not being educated, the money doesn't go into the whole system. We need to make sure that our kids have the opportunities. The example is Mississippi. They spend $37 and they got their kids to read.
Thank you. This question, I'll read it just like it's written. What conservative principle would guide your leadership the most? Mr. Collier.
What conservative principle would guide your leadership the most? That's a fantastic one. It is that people matter the most. It is about the individual. It is about individual Kansans and how you can live your life. That we need to get government out of the way and that people are our business. We need to focus on outcomes for folks. That's what I do as a surgeon. When you come in and you've been shot in the face or in the hand or something like that, I'm talking to them. What's your job like? You know, we've got some real difficulties here. How are we going to fix this? Let's focus on the outcome for them. And we need to do that in all of our government programs, that we focus on how do we get the best results for the individual with the least amount of cost, and gives you the maximum amount of liberty and opportunity. It's about people.
Thank you.
Well, I would answer that question by going back to why I'm a Republican. If you look at the Democrats' platform, it says that they think government exists to promote the welfare of people, the human condition. Well, I've seen what they think promoting the human condition looks like, and I don't know about you, but I don't want anything to do with that. The Republicans have always believed and have always stated in their preamble that the job of government is to protect the God-given rights, which we're celebrating 250 years of this year, of the people. That's their job. Their job is not to promote the human good. It's not to give your money away. It's to protect your liberties. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as you consent to be governed by the government. So that's what that in my belief in Jesus in my life there would be what would guide me.
You know, foundational principle for me is I'm a Christ follower. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and that is number one. Then when you go to government implementation, it is just like Joy. It's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness is sequential. You can't pursue happiness if you don't have liberty. You don't have liberty if you don't have life. So you protect life first. Your life is precious first. So that is everything from our military to protecting our nation and our borders to protecting our children and our unborn is number one. Two is the pursuit of liberty. You don't have liberty if your government is taking over your constitutional rights, and you can't pursue happiness if they're taking all your money.
My guiding principle is my faith in God, and that to talk to people, to make them understand that every life at conception, that's a gift from God, and that we need to honor that. And then as we need to make sure that we allow you to keep the money that you earn because it's yours and not the government. And those are the guiding principles that I will be using, that I will be turning Topeka upside down and serving you instead of the special interests, because the special interests have been running Topeka for way too long. The state chamber runs parallel campaigns for a huge percentage of our Republican candidates. They are the big dog in the fight, and we need to put them in their place. Thank you.
So, as is true of my campaign, the only reason that I'm sitting here today is because God. There's no other answer. And I'm so very thankful for the opportunities that have been presented. And so, as is guiding the campaign, as will guide the seat of governor. And when we look at our constitutional rights and freedoms, our God-given rights and freedoms, those are will be protected by me. And I believe that we need to protect all life. It is all precious. Our unborn, our children, our disabled, our elderly, everyone in between. But those four groups are the most unheard, unseen, taken advantage of, used, abused, manipulated, and they need to be protected. And so that all people are important to me. It says, there's a common phrase that says, love God, love people. That's
Sorry. He's tired.
I noticed that was on yours, Stacy. She held that one out for you there. Since Value Them Both was voted down, Kansas has become a destination state for abortions. What would you do as governor to restrict or move against all of these abortions in Kansas?
Well, I think the first thing is a question that's already on the ballot, which is to correct our Supreme Court situation. And a lot of things that have been tried to be put in place that are simple protections around what, after the vote, have been difficult because of the Supreme Court. And so that's the number one. That's the number one thing. We got to get that question handled before we can move forward in further protections. But I think education is a huge deal, and we have to stop. We are in a very sad place in this state with the number of abortions that are happening in this state right now, with the influx of people coming in because they can. We're a destination, and that is definitely, we've got to put some parameters in place to keep that from happening, because it's just, and there have been with the pills, with the being able to get those.
Thank you.
In 2024, 19,811 babies were aborted in the state of Kansas. This is unconscionable. The most important thing that's going to be on the primary ballot is the direct elections of our state Supreme Court justices. I have 15 signs out there, and I don't want to see one left. I want those in front of houses, and I want you to be talking to your neighbors and your friends and your relatives and say, this is we the people versus the Kansas Bar Association. Because the Kansas Bar Association right now controls who is on the state Supreme Court. And they are very left of center. And that is why we have all of these abortions happening in Kansas. And there is a category, 10 to 14, girls 10 to 14. And the majority of them are from out of state. Right. Sex trafficking, anyone? Right. And it's unconscionable.
Thank you.
So my wife and I have been in the battle for life since 1991. Anybody from around Wichita remember the Summer of Mercy? We had a doctor down there, that was, performing partial birth, abortions in this state. And so it's been a top of mind battle. And as I talked about the fundamental principle of life and protection, that there's so much that we need to do. Abortion is an 80-20 issue in this. When you're talking about 80% of people say they want fewer, they don't want late term, they don't want taxpayer funded, they want more abortion options. Those are 80-20 issues. In order to do that, we do need, and by the way, that is the most important question on the ballot in August, but that doesn't change the Constitution. But we do need a court that reflect the will of the Kansas people.
Thank you.
Well, this is a top of mind issue for anyone running in this race, and there is one person running in this race who is not pro-life. You should perhaps go talk to her about her stance on it. So let me just tell you where I stand, and then say I'm willing to do whatever we can do to change this in Kansas. Where I stand is that culture's been telling our people a lot of lies. They've been telling women that you can't have a career if you have a baby. I have had a great career and I had a baby. That's a lie. It tells people that we only care about births, we don't care about families, but I see pregnancy centers and people like you every day standing beside young families and helping them actually plan a family, step up and provide resources for them. We need to continue to be able to do that and offer that. And I hear people say, well, you don't want that child to be born into a terrible circumstance. Well, I was born into a terrible circumstance. Look at me now. Who would they be to make that decision for me or for anyone else? Life is important and we need to protect it at all costs.
Kansas has this very unique thing. We have a commission that is made up of 5 trial attorneys, picked by the trial attorneys, and 4 chosen by the governor. They are the ones who actually select, here are the 3 choices that you get to choose from, Governor. And guess what? We've had 1 conservative in the last 70 years. That's what this is about. It's about you making the choice, not the attorneys picking their judges. That's what this is about. On the issue of life, I was the one who pointed out that at the current rates of growth, by 2031, we are going to have more abortions than live births in the state of Kansas. The fastest growing industry, the growth industry in Kansas, is the abortion industry. We need to put a stop at this, and you have to do this at a lot of different levels. I know this on a personal side. As a craniofacial surgeon, I've had to deal with moms with this terrible decision and help them through.
Thank you. Mr. Collier, how do you view the future of data centers in the state? And they put down tax incentives, water, eminent domain, etc.
So, data centers, big issue. Okay, I think there are 2 aspects of it. The first one is what we do at the local level. I think it is your decision on whether you want a data center in your county or your city. That choice needs to be made by you, not by the state. Now, the state comes in a different place. And this is our policy. Number 1, the electricity that you're using, you need to bring your own electricity and a little bit more so that you are driving down costs for electrical usage in your state and in your neighborhood. The second thing is we're going to make sure that you're not sucking out 30 million gallons of water out of the aquifer. If you're going to do it and that community decides, it's going to be a low water use. And so we have this decision on both levels. But the most important is that you get to decide and not a bureaucrat in Topeka.
Thank you.
I think a data center, and by the way, I'm a data company, but not a data center. I think a data center should have to make their case to be in any community, just like any other business that wants to use their water or power. They should have to make the case. And I'm hearing a lot of people call for moratoriums, and this is what I think is behind that. People do not trust that their politicians can lead them through this and get a good result for them. Yes, you're shaking your head. And there's a reason you don't trust it, and I understand that. So wouldn't it be great to have a leader that you could trust to help you walk through those situations and determine which is a good plan and which is not, and doesn't give your money away, again, to people, or your water away, or land that we need for agriculture away. That's what we need, is trusted leaders who can help us walk through these things, because we are a country of innovation and we need data centers at some level in order to compete and also to militarily be safe given what China is doing. So those are the things we need to weigh.
Thank you.
I'm never for eminent domain, particularly for private purposes of anything, whether it's a power line or a data center, doesn't matter. Land should never be taken for a private purpose. And then there are some legitimate concerns that around these data centers that need to be addressed. So there has to be heavy guardrails in place around resources, where the water is. I mean, they tell me now there's technology that gets away from water, but the guardrails need to be there. Power production, I agree that the power production needs to be done internally, so you have no cost thrown off on the residents. But there is, my understanding is that with the AI race, the China element, right? I mean, that is a real concern. We cannot lose that race to China. That is a major threat globally. We're not going to be able to stop AI. We need to be able to control it. But all those guardrails need to be in place. And ultimately, the end decision does need to be at the locals. And if they don't want them, then they need to not be there, because there's going to be other places they can be. But the China race is a real threat, and I know that's part of it.
Well, once upon a time in 2025, our supermajority Republican legislature passed SB 98, a 20-year sales tax exemption for data centers. There is already a built-in tax incentive there. It's low-hanging fruit for these data centers. Absolutely no tax incentives. We need to roll back SB 98, and we need to make sure that the data centers are not connected to our power grid or our water supplies, and if they are using water to cool, that they have to absolutely take that water and put it through a filtration system, because of the high rate of evaporation. It becomes so concentrated that it's toxic. This is a problem. I mean, there is a data center that is looking at 1,400 acres at the sunflower ammo plant in DeSoto.
Yeah. We are under attack in this state by these data center projects. There are so many of them that are being brought into that conversation. And the fact is that they are not giving the information to the cities and counties that are necessary to make those decisions at this point. In fact, they're oftentimes hiding that information, and they show all the shiny good parts, and they don't tell you about the underbelly parts of it, that are what this land is going to look like in 20 years, or whether they're going to even be around in 20 years, or we're going to be stuck with losing our land, losing our water, and they're empty, they've left, they're gone. So what I have challenged, and I have spoken with legislators who regret their vote on SB 98 for those data centers, because their words, we didn't know that what is happening in Kansas was going to start happening. And I said, well, maybe you should have thought ahead a little bit to see what was happening today. So I've challenged the cities and counties to put in a moratorium, at least long enough so we can get the legislative session back in session to reverse that.
Thank you. This is a very specific question, and again, we'll start down on that end again. What does the phrase "one nation under God" mean to you, and how would that guide your cooperation with the federal government?
Well, we are one nation under God, and as I said before, you know, my guiding purpose is through God. We are one nation, but we are also a separate state. And I always will put Kansas first and our needs first, but at the same time, we need to be able to work with our country as a whole. So.
One nation under God. I mean, I'm sure that almost everyone in here, if not everyone in here, knows that faith is the center of their life. That is our anchor. It is the anchor. I don't know how anybody gets through life without having that anchor. But the problem that we have built on decade after decade is that we keep selling our states' rights. People talk about states' rights. Well, we keep selling it because we take federal money. Every time we take federal money, we are selling our states' rights. You have to understand that. When I was in the House in 2011 and 2012, I was in an ag committee, and they go, "Oh, all this free federal money." I said, "This is not free. This is not free." "Oh yeah, sure, it's free. It's free." No, it's not. It comes with a ton of strings. Every time you take money, and that person that's given it to you, they have control over you.
Say the phrase "one nation under God" to me is more our culture and our founding and who we are than a principle necessarily of government. That we are a nation founded. We recognize we have a creator. We recognize where our rights come from, and that's not government. It also puts us under the biblical principles of loving your neighbor as yourself, right? I mean, that is what one nation under God means. And when you separate from that, you see the consequences. You see a culture of death in this country with abortion and things like that. So the one nation under God to me applies to our culture and recognizing not just who we are, but whose we are and who created it and what we do and how we operate as individuals against our friends and our enemies.
Thank you.
Well, those two little words, under God, added by our very own favorite president, right? And there's not supposed to be a gap. It's not one nation under God. I heard you, I don't hear this everywhere, but I heard all of you saying one nation under God tonight. It's important. I agree with Ty. It is to remember whose we are and to remember where our rights come from. If a government or a king gave you those rights, then they can take them away. But when your creator does, they have no power to take them away. As far as our cooperation with the federal government, there are things that we need to work together on. Our national security is vital. We have military bases inside of our own state. I've worked with most of them on different projects in my business career. I think it's important that we have a strong military, both domestically and internationally. And we see that right now with what's happening in our country, in our world. But I think also things like immigration reform, we need, and well, there we go, there's my time. So I'll say more later, maybe.
Thank you.
That's right. Ike, just down the road in Abilene, was the one who insisted that it get added to the pledge. And I think that's really a very formative thing of where Kansas is and who we are. And that's the basic thing. We're the exact center of the United States. We are the beating heart of the United States. I think that Kansas values, like Ike had, are the ones that America needs once again. And we are one nation. And one of the things we haven't talked about is when I was lieutenant governor and governor, we have to deal with our military. I was here in Salina when our troops got deployed to Syria and to other places. And I was here when they and their families are waiting for them to come back. And as a governor, we're going to have to continue to deal with these. We have dozens of Kansas, if not hundreds of Kansas, aircraft and planes that are in the Middle East right now. And we've got to support them.
Thank you. Timekeepers, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you here. Let's make this a 2-minute question because there are so many questions about property taxes. And I know you came prepared for that. I can see all the notes on the table there. Mr. Collier, we'll start with you. And the reason I'm giving you extra time is this. I want you to be specific, this question says, and explain your plan for reducing Kansas property taxes.
Property taxes are largely locally based, counties, cities. Everywhere I go, I'm hearing from people, my property taxes have gone up through the roof. I was with a family in Atwood, that they were paying more for their house's property taxes than what their original mortgage was. And it was eating them alive, being on a fixed income there. So with property taxes, there's been a whole lot of discussion. We're going to change the appraisal system. Yeah, there are problems in the appraisal system. No, we're going to just do something here or something there. It is an equation. The equation is the tax rate times the appraisal of your house. And that equals how much you can spend. We will put in the Constitution one that you can vote on that says we are going to limit property taxes, the overall outcome of this, so that make it 3% or something, or inflation plus the rate of growth. And if you want to go above that, your county and city can put it up to a vote of the people, just like we do when we want to build a school. And I think you've got to control the whole equation. We have to change our appraisal system. The appraisal system changes all over the place. It's very different based on the software, based on the approach. You know, my house was appraised versus houses in 2 different cities in Kansas City there. And you know what? If they pay me what they appraised my house for, I think I'd sell it to them tomorrow. I'd even give them a 10% discount. But it's got to be realistic. here, and we're gonna have to change some of the statutes so that we conform to a product that is the same for everybody and it is comparable on them. And then we need to make sure it's in the Constitution. And when you have a governor, you notice the legislature couldn't get their act together. When you have a governor, we're going to push it and make sure you're protected.
Thank you.
I think the single biggest failure in Topeka this year was the inability to get anything done on property tax. And what you have is a governor pointing at the legislature, the Senate pointing at the House, appraisers pointing their fingers at the county commissioners, and meanwhile grandma is opening her tax statement and wondering if she's going to have to sell a house that's been in her family for 5 generations to make, because she can't afford the taxes anymore. This is a vital issue for us. I put out a property tax reform plan in January I've mentioned tonight. I'll talk about 3 things. Number 1, it does cap appraisal growth at inflation or 3%, whichever is lower, because there's lots of years when we have Republican presidents when our inflation isn't 3%. So they shouldn't get the benefit of that. I think that, tied with the net revenue neutral that the legislature's already passed, is a good start at making sure that we can see what happens. Number 2, the appraisal system is out of control. And it's not weighted in your favor. It's weighted in the favor of somebody that has some calculation out there that they think is right. They should have to show their work. When they show you what your new number is, they should tell you how they got there. And they should, it should be based on comparables in your community. I have a guy in Harper, Kansas telling me his comparables for his little business property were from Johnson County and New Jersey. What sense does that make? When has Kansas ever been like New Jersey? And let's pray to God it never is.
Get close.
Third, we also think there should be a property tax relief fund that's funded by locals, because locals are the ones driving property tax. The state has one. It offsets tax growth for seniors and veterans. And locals, if they're going to grow their government, they should have to set aside some of that money to help their seniors and their veterans so they don't get thrown out of their houses because of their property taxes. There's more on our website at kansascomeback.com. There's a property tax reform plan.
Thank you.
I'm actually so glad somebody asked this question because I left it out of my opening statement. It is literally the number 1 crisis in Kansas is the property tax crisis. I have an older neighbor across the street from me. He said he was paying double in his property taxes alone than he had been for his mortgage, his insurance, and taxes combined when he paid his house off 20 years earlier. That's not talking about his insurance, which is also out of control. So here's this man, 90 years old, being taxed out of his home. He just passed away, and actually he's got 2 kids in there now, kids in their 60s, trying to pay for this thing. And that is, we are literally taxing somebody on an unrealized gain. It is not cash to them. All because your house becomes more valuable does not mean you have more money in your pocket to make that. And that's going to take a constitutional amendment. But on the other side too, we have got to work on property tax because all my adult children that are now living and working in Kansas, the average first-time homebuyer is just crested 40. 42 last quarter. We are robbing young people the ability to own a home. And that is the underpinning of the middle class in this country. That is what underpins this nation's ability. That's where most average Americans will gain their net worth. So it has to be tackled. And I can tell you what we did. The Kansas Senate did pass a constitutional amendment that limited growth at 3%. That was the max that you could grow on that gain. But you also have to, that's why I call that closing the front door. You have to be able to mitigate that. By the way, that same constitution back to your current values up to 2022 to try to mitigate all that raise happened in COVID and all that garbage. Backed it up, then imposed the 3% limit. We passed it. Then the House, the House didn't get it. But we also then passed a revenue limit because you have to close the back door too. Local governments, if you just limit the front, can go in and just throw mill levies up to the point they can recover it. So you have to have a limit. Whether that's population inflation, which I am for, and you go beyond that, you have to have the consent of the people to go beyond that in growth, because you have to limit that, because we are, between your USD, your city, your county, community colleges in many areas, we are burying people in property tax, and it's got to stop.
Okay, well, back to 2025, we had a special session that was supposed to be for property taxes, and guess what? They passed the legislation to increase star bonds for professional football and baseball from 50 to 70%, paving the way for Chiefs and $4 billion and $2 billion and this. I mean, we have to get the tax incentives under control. We need to sunset them, absolutely sunset them. We need to get our tax system so that people want to stay here and that they can prosper here. Number one, I testified in favor of Senator Murphy's SB 488 to abolish property taxes because it's such a mess. It is such a mess because of all of the exemptions and abatements and all this stuff. I mean, it is a mess. And then it is going to take getting the budget under control. We're going to have to roll back spending. Like I said, close the Department of Education. That's $300 million. That's just one. That's one. We have lots of opportunities that we have to reduce spending. But property taxes are absolutely, it doesn't work anymore. It is burdening you to the point that you cannot have the pursuit of happiness. So, do away with property taxes, and I just really appreciate the work that Senator Murphy has done on this. There's a lot of work ahead on this. It's not just a magic pill. It's going to take a lot of work, and I am really good at working. So anyway, that's my spiel.
Okay, so as I've been out there traveling and talking with people, the number one thing I hear is that we're penalized for taking care of our property. People are junking their homes in the hopes that they do not have their property tax raised, but it still is going up. And we're losing people. So we have a declining population because people are leaving. We have a declining birth rate because people aren't having as many children. So now we have a bigger problem with population. We need to figure out how to turn that around. So we are on an unsustainable path with property tax. We need to detach property from local budgets, period. And there are plans, such as Michael Murphy's plan. That is what I call a short-term fix. It's something we can put into place fairly quickly with the right numbers, with the right, I know they're still working on that, but there are some long-term solutions. And I think it's going to take a combination of things to provide real relief for the taxpayer. The long-term one actually works off of interest and doesn't result in another tax somewhere else. And that is something that the majority of people in this room we won't see the total completion of that, but our grandkids and our great-grandkids will, and it'll be a sustainable, long-lasting relief for the people of this state. It's also an organic economic development tool, because if you don't have property tax, you think people might want to move here? And then what do you need when more people move here? More business, more revenue. We have more revenue coming in, and it's organic. It is not the entire answer to economic development, but it is a nice tool to have in our back pocket. So detaching that property, and like I said, when we can look at those, get those full plans. I've heard the full long-term plan. It's got a lot of teeth to it. We need some shorter term options though, because people need relief now, not down the road. And it will need to be that combination. And of course, it takes care of a myriad of problems.
Thank you. Again, building upon this, these are going to be property tax questions for a little while. Other states, and this question references Texas, freeze taxes on homes for their senior population. Would you be in support of that as governor, and is there a way that would be accomplished through our legislature?
Yeah. So when we look at different groups of people to relieve them of property tax, it does push the burden on others. And so going forward with looking at a way to detach property altogether benefits us all. And it doesn't harm our future, our children from purchasing homes. It doesn't put an additional burden on anyone else. It fixes it for everybody across the board. It helps our veterans, helps our seniors, it helps our younger people. So that is one of the things that I hear a lot is a lot of Band-Aids to symptoms without addressing the root cause of the problem. Now, the root causes of property tax issues in this state are holes that have been dug so deep by the state that we can't get out of them. Star bonds, decades long. Unfunded mandates that are put on the cities and counties, and then unfairly fingers are pointed and said it's all their fault for why your property taxes are rising. When they took away LITVR, which was a portion of sales tax they were giving to the cities and counties to offset that, they took it away back in 2003. They now owe billions to the cities and counties. If they restarted it, and I'll use Leavenworth County as an example because that's where my lieutenant's from and I know these numbers well, it would drop 8 mills off of the property tax right there. It would have a similar impact across the state. So there are things the state has done that has made what the cities and counties have to do in response to make your property tax go up, and it's unsustainable. So we've got to look at those other options available to us.
Thank you.
I agree with Stacy that if you just focus on one population, then that is going to push the property taxes onto the other groups. So that is why we have to abolish property taxes. That it is just absolutely that all of us, small businesses, individuals, we cannot afford to continue to pay these taxes. I'll just give you a quick statistic. In Johnson County, in 1989, prior to the full implementation of the reclassification and equalization constitutional amendment that we passed in 1986, yes, we did it to ourselves, that the amount of property tax revenue collected on residential in Johnson County was 47% was residential, 47%. That is now 70%. That has what has been the huge shift, and that is from all of these tax incentives. It is just absolutely destroying our tax base, and it's putting so much pressure on the rest of us. So I think that we need to solve the problem instead of just nibbling at the edges. It's going to take a lot of work, and like I said, I'm willing to put my shoulder to the wheel.
Thank you.
So the issue with freezing on one particular segment of property tax is that if you're not solving the problem of the spending and they continue to increase the spending in that taxing jurisdiction, you're going to oversize the load on every other group. You have to solve it at that level. Just picking a particular group to stop. Because then, like just the example of my neighbor and my children, right? If you freeze it for my 90-year-old neighbor and the children can't afford housing because theirs will go up even exponentially more. So you have to solve the problem at the root, which is at the level of spending. I'd be for freezing everybody's property taxes.
Thank you.
Well, I mentioned the taxpayer relief funds. I do think that's an important thing because we do have seniors that are on fixed incomes that need help, and I think there's a way to do that and carve that out. We've recognized that for a long time, but like my opponents down here, I do think it's also a spending issue, and we need to get that under control. And one of the things is I've been studying the property tax issue that I found is there are a lot of groups that get to set mills on your property tax, on your appraisal form that are not voted on by you. There are water boards, there are recreation boards, there's library boards, and you don't vote on any of them. I think we fought a war over that about 250 years ago, that idea of taxation without representation. So I think one of the things we need to look at when we look at our spending is why are those groups of people able to levy taxes on us and we have no say, we can't go take care of that or unelect them later. And we also need to make sure that we equip our people to have more conservatives on these boards, on these commissions, on these city councils, on these school boards, and then help them figure out how to pull their spending back where they need to, because some of these counties are growing incredibly, their bills, their budgets, when their county is not growing. And that's going to take you stepping up and doing that. So it's going to take all of us working together, not just the governor or the legislature, but all of us together.
We just pay too much in taxes. Don't you agree? And it's all across the board. And when you add it all up, okay, Kansas, the exact center of the United States, we're the high tax state, not just for the region, the 4 states around us. If you draw a circle around all of those 5 states, of those 17 states, Illinois is higher than we are, and we're kind of tied with New Mexico. Colorado's beating us, Missouri's beating us, Oklahoma's beating us, Nebraska's beating us, South Dakota, the list goes on and on. So what do? The reason taxes are high is because our expenses are high. And we are digging ourselves in a hole on the state level, and also we're digging our hole on the local level. On the state level, the budget is $500 to $700 million underwater for the 3rd year in a row. we have a structural deficit. If we want to lower taxes across the state, we've got to cut our expenses, make ourselves more efficient, get rid of unnecessary state employees, get rid of the fraud that's in the programs. On the local level, you need certainty there. That's why a constitutional amendment is so important. We need to put a lid on what the expenditure is going to be so that you have a choice and you have control. And once you start doing that and localizing it like that and solve both problems, then we can lower expenses for everybody. And if we have some special needs, we can deal with those. But we're in a big hole right now. When I came in as Lieutenant Governor, a few days afterwards, we were in the midst of the 2010 recession. We were halfway through the fiscal year. We were $500 million in the hole, and I asked the budget guy, well, how much is in the checking account? And we had $834 in the checking account. I've lived this. We are set up to go through it again, and we're not going to do that.
Thank you, thank you. And I don't know if I said back to 1 minute so we can get a few more of these questions back in here again. Because these guys.
We just talk and talk.
I believe one of you brought up the age of first-time homeowners has risen and risen and risen. This question says, what can we do to make Kansas more affordable for our young people so they stay here?
That is a fabulous question, whoever asked it. 1% of the state has walked in the last 7 years. 1%. Most of them under 40. Most of them with great skills, either in manufacturing or a college degree. We've got to stop it because we're too expensive. So the first plank of our proposal is this. We need more money in your pocket. And the way that we do that is we increase wages by selling more productive stuff. Instead of, for example, in agriculture, instead of selling just corn, we're selling beef. So we process the thing. You know, after all, a cow is just a big pile of corn. But we can get better value for everybody. And we lower our expenses overall. We want to make sure that we have the jobs of the future and the technology that we need. So that places like Salina and all of our neighboring areas, that you can get real manufacturing here, that your kids can live their life here and be affordable. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What can we do to make Kansas more affordable for young people so they stay here?
Great. All right, well, if you want to grow Kansas, you have to do 3 things. You have to fix your education system. Nobody wants to live in a state, particularly young people, when their kids can't get an education. Number 2, you have to fix our tax and spending. We've been talking about it all night. The individual tax burden in Kansas is only about 1.5% lower than California. People are leaving California, they're leaving Kansas. It's not rocket science. And 3, you have to change your regulation structure for businesses so you can be an epicenter of entrepreneurship, which we've talked a lot tonight about how we shouldn't do that. But figuring out the right regulations for businesses so we aren't putting them out of business, and figuring out how to allow them to grow and getting out of their way instead of being in their way is the way we do that. So if you want to make it more affordable for Kansans, that's what states that are thriving are doing. They're fixing education, they're getting their tax and spending right, and they're getting their regulations right. And when they do that, and they get out of people's way, people want to thrive where they are, and other people hear about it, and they come. That's what it takes.
Thank you.
So I've learned people move or stay places for 2 main reasons, jobs or relationships. Right, and that's why most people go or stay. And we're not running a dating service, so let's talk about some jobs. Right, we need to have opportunity for our kids. And I do also, when I told you all 6 of our kids are staying here, that was relationships, right? Because 2 of them could run off and go make more money for sure, maybe 3 in a different state. But we need growth. We need opportunity for our kids. We have to I love what President Trump is doing, reshoring manufacturing and making things in America. I want those things made in Kansas. Right? We have that ability. We have that opportunity. My father was an aviation guy, built airplanes for 40 years. We're still building planes in Wichita. And we have to have opportunity for our kids. Then on the affordability side, there are things we do. Having been a home builder most of my career, there are so much cost in a house that isn't just labor and material. that is imposed on a house through local governments, through impact fees and permitting, and there's so much we can do to make that more affordable. Thank you.
Yes, being a general contractor, and I also was on the Board of Code Review in Olathe. And the local governments have control over what of the codes that they want to adopt. And unfortunately, we kept adding and adding and adding. Well, when I was on the Board of Code Review, we actually went through every step of the way and decided, well, this works for us, this doesn't work for us. But unfortunately, a lot of cities just go, well, we'll just adopt the whole new code. And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the prices. So absolutely, regulations, we've got to roll back some of these regulations. It's just that the expenses it's just too much. So that's one place that we can do. But absolutely, we've got to get our schools. No one wants to live in a state that 83% of the children have to have remedial classes when they go to college. That's a no-brainer. And then an example of how, well, I'll talk about next.
So number one, getting rid of property tax makes it more affordable for people to stay here. But another thing is, my youngest son is a diesel mechanic, and there's a great need for workers in skilled labor areas, whether it's HVAC or welding or manufacturing, and we are not encouraging those enough as fields. So instead we still hear you should go to college, but not everybody is meant to go to college, and he could go anywhere in this state and get a job because there are just jobs everywhere. So I don't know that jobs are the issue in a lot of we're just not encouraging those kinds of jobs in this state. And so if we can encourage kids and educate them and get them into those fields, those are great paying fields right there as well. So
thank you. At this point, I'm going to wrap up the questions and we're going to go to our closing statements. I know it's been a long night for you guys, but I think this has been helpful, and I know some could not attend, but getting this many questions and getting some responses back from those, I think has been helpful for our community. We will have a 3-minute closing, and I'll tell you, there were questions I didn't get to regarding DEI and pride flags and teachers unions and China buying up land, so feel free to include any of those in your closing statement as well. But we started with our opening on this end. Let's start with our closing on the other end. And Stacey Rogers, if you would, 3 minutes.
Yes, so I'll stand again for this one. I just have one question for you. Are we going to continue to do the same thing we've always done, expecting a different outcome? Because last time I checked, that's the definition of insanity. And we've discussed a lot of things tonight about how we're on an unsustainable path with a lot of things. There's point in any direction, topics we didn't get to, foster care, our court system, our Medicaid. We didn't talk about a lot of things tonight that are really, really broken in this state and need to be overhauled. And we haven't seen it happen. We haven't seen those things addressed well. And I've spent a lot of time talking with people who are struggling through the court system with their children, with custody issues, with having their children taken with no investigations. And there are a lot of things that are occurring that should not be happening in the state. But we keep putting the same people in office over and over, thinking they're going to keep their promises this time, and that has not happened. And so I just encourage you to research each candidate, look at their track record. I always say follow the money, and really check them out and ask questions. So as I've traveled this state, that's the number one thing I want to do, is get in front of people face to face and talk with them. And of course I can't reach every single Kansan when I'm doing that, but I do answer every single message personally. And I know that sounds crazy, but we carry these magic little boxes with us that make it really easy, even when I'm on the road. And I spend hours a night answering emails and messages from Kansans all over the state. It is incredibly important that I hear directly from people, and they hear directly back from me to get their questions answered. These 1 and 2 minute answers were not enough to fully get your questions answered. So I strongly encourage you to come talk with me afterwards.
Thank you, Stacey Rogers. Give her a hand, please. Ms. Charlotte O'Hara.
Thank you. Well, this has been 15 months on the road. This has been an incredible experience for me. I have put about 40,000 miles on my car. I've been out in western Kansas at least 4 times. I think one of the most important things that I've accomplished is that I've really developed relationships with people all across the state of Kansas. One example is Pastor Kyle Evans in Scott City. He is stepping up and he is taking on the being a proponent of the direct election of our Supreme Court justices, and that is the secret of getting this passed. We have to get our faith community involved, and that they know that they have to be registered, and that it is on August the 4th, and that is the most important thing that is on the ballot. Please, if you know a pastor, get a hold of me. I'll get him in touch with Pastor Evans. We have got to get this done. I've got pastors in Southeast Kansas is working. This is just so important. But anyway, my focus is life. My focus is education. My focus is doing away with the property taxes. My focus is you. I want to focus on you, not the big guys. These property tax incentives and abatements, they're bankrupting us. They are bankrupting us. It's got to stop. One of the projects, Panasonic, they promised us 4,000 jobs. We've got 1,200. Falling so short of the promises. And that is what is one of the problems of the Republican Party. Promise after promise after promise has been broken, and a lot of people have given up on even voting. There's a lot of people going, why do I vote? It's the same thing all over again and again and again and again. I promise you, you elect me, and there will be change, and it will be for you.
Thank you. Ms. Charlotte O'Hara.
Thank you, man. And thank you all for coming out tonight. These are long nights, right? But I know you're serious when you sit here for 2.5 hours and listen to us. So just thank you for being out here and giving us that opportunity. What I hope you've seen is the man in the arena, the guy that's, because I'll tell you this, the Kansas legislature, particularly the conservative Republicans that are there, it's no career. I mean, it is a sacrifice of time. And so when I hear that, I look at my friends that are serving, and they're serving you. You have some really good representation here. It is not, they are the career fighters for you. We've just been battling against radical liberal Democrats. And I can tell you, I've been the man in the arena. I am the battle-tested, proven leader. You want to go find go look at a record. I've got the longest record of anybody up on any issue you want to look at. And just like Donald Trump, being a battle-tested, proven leader makes you effective moving forward. And we are going to focus. We have monster issues. We have to tackle the property tax crisis. We have to have different results and outcomes in education. We have to bring opportunity for our children. Our largest exports become our children. That is not a good trajectory. We have to bring opportunity for our kids here, and we will bring that. I believe Donald Trump wakes up every day trying to figure out how to put more money in our pockets and keep our streets safe, and I love battling this woke agenda and destroying that, which has been destroying our country. That is exactly what I've been fighting for you to do in Topeka. I'm that battle-tested leader as well, and we will. He is making America great, but we've only got a few more words, and if you'll join me, we will see our piece of American greatness. Thank you for coming out.
Ms. Joy Akins.
Thank you. You know, if the career politicians had a plan, I wouldn't be here because we wouldn't need a Kansas comeback. We're at a crossroads. We can pick the same old that we've always picked. We'll keep seeing our kids fall further behind. Our taxes will keep going up, and our friends and our family will leave this place that we all love. Or we could choose a Kansas comeback. A place where our kids are thriving in education systems that think they're valuable, not doomed to fail. A place where grandma doesn't have to open her tax bill and wonder if she's going to be able to hold on to that property one more year. A place where businesses thrive and people find opportunity. That's the Kansas that we could be if we find the right leader. And, you know, look, I know going with somebody different than you've gone before feels like it might take a little courage, but I think people of Kansas are pretty courageous people. That's how we got here in the first place. Well, this is the commitment I make to you. If you give me the honor of your vote in August, I'll fight every day to make sure that you and your family and your friends have opportunity, real opportunity, and that the government understands you're the good guys. We want to keep talking to you. On our table, we've got a little card that you can scan and you can have a conversation with our AI assistant, Eli. And then when you interact with Eli and we hear what you're concerned about, then you get to join us for town halls that we have, conversations, additional conversations beyond this, more in depth, more than a minute at a time. So I hope you'll do that tonight. And lastly, I just want to thank the Granny Brigade. For 6 years, you guys have stood up for Kansans. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for putting this great event on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Jeff Collier.
It's great to see friends here tonight. It's great being here in Salina, Kansas. And I want to thank the Granny Brigade. I want to thank all of you for your attention and amazingly good questions. I know everybody's interested, and I'm so honored to be a part of this. What is the plan? How do we change this state? Let me give it to you in pretty straightforward terms. Number one, we need more money in your pocket. It means better paying jobs, higher wages. It means lower taxes across the board so that there's more money in your pocket. That your businesses have less regulation, that you can see your future here in Kansas. The second thing that we need to do is we need to make sure our kids have a world-class education, the best around. And we can do that. We have the resources, we have the teachers. We can do this. We are going to get the woke out of our schools. We will focus on the jobs of the future, the jobs that are right here in Kansas. The third thing we need to do is get rid of all of the fraud that exists in food stamps and other programs there. When I was lieutenant governor and governor, we were one of the best in the country. Now we're one of the worst, and we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars. That's your money. The fourth thing that we need to do is protect our communities. We need to back the blue. We need to make sure criminal, illegal aliens are not going to threaten your families. And then finally, we're going to restore Kansas common sense. Boys are not going to be in your daughter's restrooms. You are not going to see a child mutilated on my watch. We're going to fight for you. And the lesson is Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the 45th and 47th president. And when you've done the job and done it well, and you go back out and live in the wild and live under those, when you come back guns blazing on all fronts. We have a lot to do. Kansas can't wait. I would be number 47 and 49. And believe me, we're here to fight for you. We will stand alongside President Trump, just as I've met him multiple times. Kansas needs a proven, strong, competent, conservative governor who's going to fight for you, that thinks about it 24/7, that you wake up in the middle of the night, just like a surgeon. When you get called at night, you know that that person's going to make the right decision for you. As you know, I've worked in about 25 different war zones, and you don't know what you're going to get when those bullets start flying. Sometimes bad things happen, sometimes their training comes through, sometimes we have amazing people. We have great candidates up here. I'm the one candidate where you know the proof in the pudding. Let's make Kansas great again.
Thank you. Jeff Collier. A big thank you to all of our candidates who were able to come tonight, and I trust that we had a conversation with the next governor of the great state of Kansas tonight.